Did you know it was a super late night at City Hall last night while you were sleeping? Austin City leaders kept the lights on at City Hall through the overnight hours. They didn't even call it quits till probably around 2 o'clock this morning. So Mike Kanan, of course, he was there. He's with the Austin Monitor. He's joining us to talk about two major issues that happened last night. We're talking about ride sharing and short-term rentals, the never-ending saga of short-term rentals. But let's start with ride sharing. What was going on?
So also with ride sharing, a little bit of never-ending feeling here.
Yeah.
Your viewers, I'm sure, will remember we've tried to deal with this before. It came back because there were some safety concerns, and some city leaders wanted to see if they could go about figuring out a better way to vet drivers of ride-sharing companies. And so they came up with this idea to do fingerprinting. Fingerprinting is not necessarily a welcome thing for these ride-sharing companies. They argue that not only is their process more robust, but that fingerprinting can sort of slow down the innovation that they argue that they bring to the city. So as your viewers may be aware, they're threatening to leave if we go with this fingerprinting move. We'll see what happens. Still lots to come on this. There'll be vetting and committee vetting and I think more council vetting too. So we're not quite close to the end here, but we have an idea of what direction they're going to go when they try to amend these TNC rules. And
isn't City Council trying to put them more in line with what the taxi drivers have to do? Because they have to do that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And yesterday, in fact, you saw Councilmember Troxclair, who was maybe not necessarily in favor of the fingerprinting, trying to actually bring taxi rules more in line with TNC rules, suggested that some of the TNC safety regulations like map sharing, that sort of thing, GPS tracking, might be better, might be used well in taxi cabs. So sort of trying to align the two things, trying to get the two types of businesses more like each other.
Well, with them threatening to leave, that could certainly spur on more conversation. Let's switch to the other topic of short-term rentals, an ongoing debate. So what was the latest from last night?
So the latest is we actually have a starting point now for the changes in the regulations that council members have been working on for a while. We're now talking about, thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Tovo, a phase out of Type 2 STRs, which are the type that are not owner occupied, so the type that some folks like to call party houses. Phase out of those in residential areas. That's a big deal. That's a big change. And if coupled with a moratorium that we're going to hear about on November 12th, there'll be a public hearing about that on November 12th. We're talking about real major regulations about how we do short-term rentals in the city. Concerns from the short-term rental community, this is too much, that that we're killing business, that there are only a few, as they call them, bad actors out there, and that there's no real need to do all this stuff. There is, however, the folks in the neighborhoods are real worried about these things and very vocal and very angry.
Yeah, the ones who are running their business saying we're doing what we're supposed to, bring in more code enforcement for the ones that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But you said there was a big crowd there last night.
There was a big crowd and a very vocal crowd, and we could hear stuff from the audience. As you go to City Hall, you can hear it, but definitely some real tension in the air.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So when do they take up this issue again?
So the next step in this, I believe, will be November 12th when we'll talk about a separate sort of section. It's going to be about whether or not we should do a moratorium on the licenses just in general, which would no more licenses moving forward.
Interesting stuff. All right, Mike Kanan with the Austin Monitor. Thank you so much. Always interesting stuff.